Welcome to the deep dive. So if you've got a classic Tamiya buggy, maybe a Grasshopper, Hornet, or Grasshopper 2, and you've noticed that bouncy rear end.
Ah, yes, the infamous Hornet hop or gearbox slap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of unsettling wobble when you accelerate or brake hard, you're definitely in the right place if that sounds familiar.
It's a known characteristic of these awesome little buggies. Fun, tough, but that rear suspension design, especially on the Hornet and GH2, it pivots.
Right, and that pivoting, it gets a bit much sometimes.
Under power, yeah. The front of the gearbox wants to lift up.
Which causes problems for you, the driver, right? I mean, it's not just looks.
So no, your suspension basically stops working properly back there. The shocks can max out.
Leading to that bouncing, the hob we mentioned.
Exactly, and loss of traction, which is never good. Instability, too. You can even flip it.
Especially if you've put a hotter motor in,
Yeah.
a 540, or even brushless.
Oh, absolutely. Or even just grippier tires. It makes the whole thing much more obvious.
So our mission today is to dive into the fixes. We're talking aftermarket parts, DIY solutions, everything to sort of tame that gearbox slap.
We've looked into a bunch of gearbox stabilizers, different types, different makers, to give you the lowdown.
Okay, let's dig in. Why does this slap actually happen? What's the mechanics?
So the original Grasshopper had a pretty rigid rear end. But the Hornet, it introduced this pivoting gearbox setup.
To improve suspension travel, right?
Yeah, that was the idea. But when you hit the throttle, the force tries to rotate that whole gearbox assembly upwards around its pivot.
And if there's nothing stopping it, up it goes.
Pretty much. And when it lifts, like I said, the shocks top out. They can't compress.
Hence the hop. Tires leave the ground.
Yep, loss of grip, instability. And you often hear an actual slap noise as it hits the chassis.
Right. And more power just amplifies all of that.
Massively.
Okay, so people obviously didn't just put up with this. What kind of solutions have emerged? What are the main categories?
There are a few main routes people take. First, you've got what are usually called braces or retainers.
Okay, what do they do?
They're basically direct links. They connect the gearbox housing to the main chassis to physically limit how much it can pivot upwards.
So they directly stop the slap.
Exactly. Their whole job is to prevent that excessive movement and let the shocks work again. AmPro Engineering is probably the best known name here.
We saw them mentioned a lot, often 3D printed.
Yeah, usually nylon, sometimes composites, strong stuff. WOP is another name that pops up doing similar things.
Okay, so braces are one type. What else?
Then you have anti-roll bars, sometimes called stabilizer rods. Think Kingfly or those vintage UG ones for the Hornet.
That their main job is different, isn't it? More about cornering.
Precisely. They're designed to reduce how much the chassis leans or rolls side to side in turns.
So they might incidentally limit the gearbox lift a bit.
Maybe a tiny bit, but it's not their primary function like a brace. And some of those older, low-slung anti-roll bars could sometimes catch on things.
All right, snag hazards. Okay, and the third category, the homebrew stuff.
Ah, the DIY mods. Gotta love the ingenuity. Two main ones get talked about a lot.
Go on.
There's the wire mod. You drill a small hole in a little nub on the gearbox casing.
Drill, okay.
Yeah, a bit of modification needed. Then you run a piece of sturdy wire from there to the chassis to basically tie it down. People say it works really well and it's super cheap.
Interesting. And the other one?
Even simpler, maybe. The screw mod.
What?
You just install a screw, usually through the chassis plate somewhere, positioned, so it physically stops the gearbox from lifting too high.
It just acts as a bump stop, basically.
Exactly. Simple, effective.
Let's circle back to AmPro for a sec. They seem really popular for these braces. What makes their solution stand out?
Well, they make specific parts for specific models. There's a brace for the original Grasshopper chassis if it's got the Hornet gearbox, and one for the actual Hornet.
Tailor-made.
Right. Designed purely to kill the slap and hop. Usually 3D printed nylon, mounts neatly. And a neat bonus, they often integrate a much better battery door solution too.
Oh yeah, those stock battery doors can be a pain. Retainer pins or clips.
Yeah, much more secure. They also make different braces for the Grasshopper 2 and Super Hornet because their rear end is constructed differently.
And getting hold of AmPro parts, is it still mainly shapeways or?
It seems like they've shifted more towards offering the digital STL files directly now on places like My Minifactory.
So you buy the file and print it yourself?
Or use an online printing service, yeah. Gives you options. Might be cheaper than ordering a physical part, especially with shipping.
Okay. And quickly, those other options, WOP, Kingfly, UG.
WOP seems to offer similar 3D printed braces, maybe focusing on the GH2 Super Hornet, possibly a bit cheaper. Kincli is that aluminum anti-roll bar kit, mainly for cornering, not slap.
NUG.
That's vintage. A period anti-roll bar, cool collector's item, but maybe not the best performance fix for slap today, and has that snagging potential we mentioned.
Gotcha. And the DIY wire and screw mods are always there if you don't mind a bit of tinkering.
Definitely. Very cost-effective ways to solve the problem, based on community feedback.
So let's talk results. You fit one of these Abraze, mainly. What difference does it actually make? The benefits.
Huge difference, usually. The hop is gone or vastly reduced. Handling becomes much more predictable, stable.
The rear suspension actually works.
Yes, it can absorb bumps properly. Less noise from the slapping. And crucially, you can run more powerful motors without the back end going crazy.
Plus the battery security with the AmPro ones. Any downsides?
While cost, obviously, for aftermarket parts, shipping can add up, maybe durability of 3D prints if you're really bashing hard, though good materials like nylon PA12 are tough.
Installation effort too. Drilling for some.
Yeah, some require drilling holes. And maybe the finish on 3D prints isn't as slick as molded plastic for some people. Anti-roll bars have that snagging risk.
Okay, so final comparison. If someone listening wants to fix the hop, specifically, is it brace or anti-roll bar?
For the hop, for the gearbox slap, it's the brace. That's what it's designed for, directly stopping in that upward pivot.
Anti-roll bars are for cornering stability.
Right. Different jobs. So if hop is your main problem, look at braces like AmPro, WOP, or consider those DIY mods. Check compatibility carefully, of course.
Makes sense. So it sounds like this Hornet hop, well, a classic Tamiya cork, is definitely something you can fix. Lots of ways to approach it.
Absolutely. From buying a well-designed brace to, spending an hour with a drill and some wire, it shows how adaptable these platforms are and how keen the community is to improve them.
So a final thought for you listening. We've seen how much difference tackling this one specific issue the gearbox slap can make. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other performance boosts are hiding in these classic RC designs, just waiting for a smart upgrade or maybe a clever little DIY tweak, maybe messing with the front end, the steering? Could that be your next deep dive?
Always something more to tinker with.
Indeed. Thanks for diving deep with us today.